can't cartwheel in. Like my cartwheels go halfway and then I just collapse.
Alright guys, welcome. It's not a big night, but there's a lot of stuff to cover. This is a great guest of mine I've known for a long time. He actually coached me when I took the very first boot camp I ever paid for through ABCs of Attraction, and we ended up getting along really well. And I remember we started this opinion opener called the Midget Opener. I don't remember it word for word, but it was just fascinating to see him open this girl who apparently had a midget in her family, and he still managed to somehow talk to her for an entire 20 minutes without pissing her off. So yeah, put your hands together for Ozzie Rios of ABCs of Attraction.
Alright, so the main thing I want to talk about is dating. And the way I'm going to try to break things down, it's going to be in concepts, not so much details. I feel that sometimes when you try to explain something in details, people don't grasp the big picture, and then they're out there trying to just, do a routine or use a line, and you're not going to get very far if you don't understand how everything works. So I want to start off with just a quick bio for you guys who don't know me. I came into the community back in 2005. This was after reading the game, like most people, and then I joined the forum, and I took my first boot camp with JT, the Asian Playboy, in 2006, and I started coaching for him back in 2007. I did the whole night game thing for a while, and then I'm a small business owner, so this thing isn't my main gig. I don't do this for the money. I do this because I actually want to help people out and help them communicate better, help them develop relationships, and move their life forward. I got a lot of clients now that are engaged, they're married, or they're in serious relationships, and that's what I'm about. I'm not about going out there giving you gimmicks, giving you lines, and trying to do all these funky tactics that aren't going to work or they're not going to take you anywhere. So right before I took my boot camp back in 2006, I met up with a great group of guys out here in Santa Monica in the Promenade. And for that summer, my goal was to do as much day game as possible. I went out there 5 hours, 5 days a week. I would just talk to girls, talk to girls, talk to girls. At this point though, I didn't quite know what day game was. I was just out there talking, hey, it's a great group of guys. I'm just going out there, have fun, shoot the shit with them, see what I can learn. I thought it was just a game. There was no real, this is day game, this is night game, this is how it varies, this is what you need to switch around. And the group of guys, they were everywhere. Some guys were allowed, back in the day, the magic tricks. Some would walk around with their shoelaces untied, tossing them in front of the girl, waiting for the girl to say, hey, your shoelaces untied. They wiggle their foot and they magically tie themselves, and that was their BT spike. The girl's like, oh my God, it was awesome. Other guy would just go direct, and for some time, it was a small group, but then there'd always be guys coming in and out. And the small group, these guys, no matter what they did, they were always progressing, they were always getting better, and I could see it. They could go into a clothing store and then run their game, and it would work. They'd be outside walking, they would be able to stop a girl, and it would work. And the other guys, it wouldn't really go anywhere. They'd have some AA, they really wouldn't open properly. And I started kind of backwards engineering it. I was like, well, why are these guys who are doing funky magic tricks or just being very direct, why does it work? And these guys that are actually trying to plan out their game systematically, this is what I'm going to transition into, this is what I'm going to go into next, why is it not working for them? And what I found out was the guys who were getting a little funky, they had way better fundamentals than the other guys. So when you have a solid foundation with fundamentals in any type of game, the more you can kind of stretch away from it, because you can always come back to it. So this is why you see certain guys, whether it's day game or night game, they're out there doing some funky stuff, and it works. While other guys who are really trying to break it down and do it properly, hey, I saw you from across the street, I love your fashion, I had to come say hi, and then the girl's like, oh, what? Okay, bye. So that's what I did in order to get started in day game. So when I joined JT in the ABCs of Attraction, I did a lot of night game. But like I said, this isn't my main thing, so I had to transition away from it just because that whole nightlife thing was kind of wearing me down because I got other things to do during the day. And it turns out that a lot of the clients that I work with are in the same position. They're CEOs of companies, they're doctors, they're lawyers. They can't go out there 3 to 4 times at night trying to pick up chicks because they actually got things to do. They got careers. They got they got a lifestyle that they need to maintain. So what I'm going to try to do is break this down in a way that you can use it right off the bat. I'm not going to give you like, hey, use this line in this specific moment, or use this tactic when this happens. But if I can paint a big picture, and then you guys can kind of plug in your own personality, your own like stories, your own ambitions, your own kind of lifestyle and what you're about, then it makes it a lot easier to create a solid connection with somebody. And I believe if you create a solid connection with somebody, it's a lot easier to transition into whatever you want later on, whether it's a girlfriend, a fuck buddy, you just want to bring her and incorporate her into your social circle, because it's based on something that's real. You're not going to find yourself in that situation where, hey, you were this cool guy during the day, but now that it's 5 days later and you guys are out getting coffee or out for a drink, and you're totally this other different guy who doesn't know what to say, you're fumbling around, you're all nervous, and you're like, there's some kind of incongruence here. So I want to talk about night versus day. Some guys will say there's no difference, right? It's game. Some guys will say there's a big difference. And they're both right. There is a difference. Obviously, one, you're underneath the sun. The other one, you're in a dark venue. In one, she might be drunk. Hopefully during the day you don't run into a drunk girl, because that's obviously a bad sign. Before I break it down a little bit more, are you guys familiar with the ABCs of attraction graph? No? Okay, I'm not going to go into too much detail because it can get pretty deep. But two things that you got to keep in mind is there's an x-axis and a y-axis, right? One is energy and one is time. These two things are something that you have to understand when you're gaming, whether it's nighttime or daytime. If you can't manage your energy, I'll use a night venue as an example. You're walking like this, you're like, hey girls, you guys are beautiful. Right, what's going to happen? You're taking energy away from the group, right? You're not bringing any value. So you're going to move on, not going to talk to you. Same exact thing. You're at a bookstore, the energy level is a lot lower. It's a lot calmer. You're walking, hey, what's up girl, how you doing? So I'm like, whoa, this is way too much. So you have to understand that your energy levels and the way you maintain it affects your game. Your energy levels and the way you can affect her energy levels will affect your game. So that's one thing that night and day have similar. Now time. If you're in a venue at nighttime and you're talking to a girl and it's going well, how much time do you have to talk to her or game her?
It's up to you, really. I mean, like how good the set you're running, but there's all these logistical problems that could happen any minute. Like her bitchy friend could just pull it away.
Right, but let's just assume that it's going well. Like
Yeah.
you came in there, you're Mr. Suave, they're like, dude, who's this guy? They leave her alone, you guys are sitting on the couch. How much time do you have at nighttime?
She might be there for all 4 hours, so you
4 hours, right? If
4
you're on
hours.
the East Coast, you got maybe like 6 hours.
Yeah.
So it varies. Hours, we're talking about hours here. You're out during the day. How much time do you have?
Very little.
Very little, right? If she's at the bus stop or the train stop, she's got minutes.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, if you're used to going to a club and you're out there and you're running your routines and you're like, okay, I got 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, you can't use that same structure, that same mentality during the day when you only have 2 to 3 minutes. So your game varies a lot more during the day, but it has to condense. You have to be aware of what's around you. You have to figure out her logistics. Is she on her coffee break? Is she waiting for somebody? Is she waiting for the bus? Is she going from class to class? So that's one of the differences between night and day. And I'll get into some other stuff about how to kind of figure that out as you go along. Now I want to talk about real quickly fundamentals. The main topic that I'm going to cover today is obstacles, because it's very easy for you to go online and find an opener, right? It's very easy for you to go online and figure out how to structure a story and then incorporate your personality and your lifestyle into that story. So that's the easy part. The talking part is the easy part. But what happens when it's day game and there's 3 girls and they're moving? What happens when she's on the phone? What happens when she's on a bike with her MP3 player? Right now those lines, those routines don't really matter, because if you can't open her, you can't get her attention, then what's the point? So that's the main thing I'm going to cover. The first fundamentals, where you're doing night game or day game, fundamentals are very, very important. In my opinion, they are more important during the day. At nighttime, She might be a little entertained by the lights, the music, her friends. She might be a little ADD. She might be a little drunk. You can kind of get away with a little bit more at nighttime. But during the day, when everything is visible, she can see your shoes. She can see that your shirt is like 3 sizes too big. She can see that your eyes are darting back and forth. Or she might see that you're trying to think of what to say, so you keep on looking up. All these things matter during the day. If you have bad posture, if you're talking too quiet, or if you're stumbling, you're stuttering. So, eye contact, that's very important, especially during the day. You gotta maintain solid eye contact, right? Good tonality, good posture. In my opinion, fashion as well falls under fundamentals. I did this little experiment when I started off. I went out, I wore really big gym clothes, sweatpants, and like an overgrown shirt. And then to contrast that, I went out and wore a suit. Guess which one worked better?
Suit.
The suit, right? And it's exactly the same thing, same lines, same structure, everything. But just because of the way that I was dressed, certain girls opened up more to it. So your fundamentals, and then try some exercise at the end to kind of correct the stuff that you guys are going through. Obstacles. Name me some obstacles.
During day or night or either?
Day, specifically daytime.
Just her being in a hurry, having to get to the whatever she's going to do next.
Some obstacles.
Her friends.
Your friends.
You know, like you said, phone, technology, all those things that could be
Right.
completely taking our attention away.
All right, the first obstacle that I want to talk about is spacing and momentum, because we deal with this a lot during the day, and this usually doesn't come up at nighttime. What I mean is, if you're in a venue at nighttime, where do you usually open a girl? Where is she standing? At a bar, right?
Yeah.
So she's stationary, she's not moving. She might be at a table, sitting down, not moving. She might be on the dance floor, right? Might be, but she's still in the same area. At nighttime, when you're talking to somebody, how close are you?
Get up in her nose to nose if you wanted to.
Nose to
Get
nose,
very
right?
close.
So at nighttime, we can invade somebody's intimate space rather easily. It's socially acceptable. You get something, oh what, I can't hear you, it's loud. During the day, is that gonna happen? Right? You're not gonna invade somebody's intimate space during the day. It's not gonna happen. It's too weird. How easy is it at night to invade somebody's personal space, which is a little further out? It's pretty easy, right? Pretty easy. How we manage personal space during the day will dictate how the interactions go. Now, beyond personal space, what do we have?
Public space.
Public space, some people call it social space, right? It's probably 7 to 15 feet, depending on what part of the world you're at.
Mm-hmm.
This is the space where a lot of the interactions begin during the day, right? What happens around in that social space, we are all subconsciously aware, right? So when she's walking, even though she's not paying attention, she might be on her earphones, listening to some music, subconsciously she's already scanned that area. She already knows your body language, she already knows what you're wearing. And we see this a lot when, say you're walking down the street, and you're just like in your own little world, maybe you had a tough day at work, and you're just walking, and then all of a sudden, you see like a little animal run, right? You don't know where it is, but you pick it up, you're like, oh, and you realize it's a dog. Well, that's the way things work during the day. People are in their own little worlds, and they're constantly scanning around them, but they're not aware of it until it becomes either a threat or it grabs their attention. So how many interactions do we have at nighttime in that social space?
A lot.
Huh? None.
Oh, in the social space?
Yeah, none. You're not going to talk to a girl
Yeah.
10 feet away in a club. It's just impossible. It's going to be too loud. Her attention's going to be somewhere else. So first thing I want to talk about is like the spacing. Have you ever been to Target? Like everybody's been to Target? Have you noticed that there's always people outside asking for donations? Like, hey, save the whales. Hey, you know, feed hungry kids in Africa. But they go about it all wrong. And I'm sure you guys have done this. You walk out and they're like, hey, save the whales. Feed the kids in Africa. And you turn around and you look at them and you just walk away. Why is that?
They haven't really stopped you from moving You know?
Exactly. They didn't control your momentum, right?
It's the same thing as if like a pole told me to stop and just walk past the pole.
Exactly. There's no reason for you to invest. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is they're probably 6, 7, 8 feet behind you. So you're already facing away from them. That spacing and the way your body is positioned, it socially says that you don't have to commit to that interaction. It's very easy for you to walk away, right? Now let's take a better example, somebody who actually knows what they're doing. Have you ever been to the mall, right? And you got the little kiosk. Now what they're trying to do is, hey, try a free sample, right? And they're right next to you. They're handing you something. What's the space between that? It's much closer. Now they're asking you to invest a little bit into the interaction so that way you don't walk away. So how does this come into play during day game? Well, the same scenario. If you aren't able to open between that 7 to 15 foot space, you're giving her the same spacing as that lady or person in Target. She's not going to commit to the interaction. She's just going to look at you, say, okay, hi, all right, bye, and she's going to walk away. That's the most common mistake that guys make during the day. They don't know how to use that space properly, and then the interaction doesn't go anywhere. So it doesn't matter what lines you use, what routines, what stack, whatever format you're following, if you can't get her to stop, it's not going to go anywhere. Now, let's talk about other obstacles. We said MP3 players and stuff like that. When you open a girl and she has her earphones on, there's spacing, right? There's time before she actually receives the input, acknowledges you, takes off the earbuds, and responds. So how do we use that spacing, that 10 to 15 feet, in order for us to get her to notice us and acknowledge us? If you open when you're right next to her, she's not going to stop. By the time she does stop, she's going to be 5 to 6 feet away. She's not going to commit to that interaction. So when somebody's listening to the earphones or they got their cell phone on them, what we're going to do is we're going to use a physical gesture and we're going to use a verbal gesture. Chances are they're not going to hear us. But everybody knows that it's not about the opening. The opener is great, but the follow-up is more important. So what I want you guys to start thinking is, when you see a girl within that 15-foot range, you want to throw out a physical gesture, right? Because remember, she's not paying attention to what's going on around her. She's just perceiving things. Either it's going to be a threat or it's going to grab her attention. So the physical gesture that I like to use, and there's a variety, depends on who you are and what you like, I just stick my hand out. Right? Around the 15-foot mark, I stick my hand out. And then I verbally open. Now you might be thinking, well, she's 10, 15 feet away, she's not going to hear you, what's this going to do? Well, it's going to take her a second to acknowledge me, right? How many steps is she going to take in a second? 2, 3, right? 2, 3. So now it went from 15 feet to what, maybe 12? Right? Because I'm walking as well, right? We're closing, so we'll say about 12, 11. Okay, so now she's got to either take her earphones off or she's got to acknowledge me, right? She's got to input that in. How long is it going to take for her to acknowledge me or say something?
4 or 5 seconds.
4 or 5 seconds. Okay, we'll say 4 or 5. That's a long time. We'll say like 2 seconds.
Okay.
How much distance can she cover in 2 seconds?
Like 3 or 4 feet.
3 or 4 feet. So now we went from 11 minus 3 is what? 8 feet, right? So then now she's actually going to say something where I'm going to try to follow up. That's going to take maybe how much? Maybe another second. So how close are we now?
6 feet, 7 feet.
4, 5, 6 feet. So now we're actually having the interaction face to face. Common mistake is the girl walk by. Well, the first common mistake is people don't know that you have to use that 15-foot space. So guys are just walking around, their heads down, and all of a sudden they see like tits and ass, and like, right? All of a sudden they perked up. It's kind of obvious by then. So you want your body language to be on point. You know, your eye contact, your smiling, everything at that range. Now, second mistake is guys are open as she's walking by. So now we know we have to avoid that. What I was talking about earlier is how you control that 6-foot range dictates the interaction, how it goes. So she's in that range, we can have the interaction. Now also we have a little buffer zone. Say it takes you a little longer. Say she stops right next to us, literally right next to us. We're still in that personal space where we can have an interaction. Say she walks slightly past us. We turn around and we stop. And we're still in that space. Right? We're now controlling her momentum. We are not going to let her walk by and just not acknowledge us. So what if she's not walking now? What if she's standing, listening to an MP3 player? Right? Now we don't have any momentum to do. It's the exact same thing. We don't walk up to her and then open. As we're walking up, as we have that space, we go ahead and we verbally open and we throw out our gestures. And she's not going to hear us. She's going to be like, huh, what? And we just stand forward. Same exact thing. Now, what if there's more than just one girl? What if there's 3 girls, right? And they're all walking. How do we control that momentum? Same principle, same fundamentals. We do exactly the same thing. But what I like to do is I like to stand right in the middle. So as they come close, they open up. So now they're fanned out around me and I can have my conversation. Last thing I want is for me to open on the side and then they all slant this way or this way. I feel like I have more control when they fan out around me. Because if this girl and this girl stops and this girl starts walking away, she's gonna stop because she noticed that her friends are stopping. But if they're all off to the side and this girl doesn't see that this girl stops and then this girl's like, oh, she didn't stop, chances are they're all gonna move away. So exactly the same thing, right? We wanna open, gesture, verbal gesture. What other obstacles did you guys say?
What about when she's with like her mom or worse, her dad?
Oh, that's a good question. I just had this student who he was a Fabi Asian guy, so he really didn't quite understand like the social dynamics of things. Like, oh, she's with her father. Do the same thing. Fundamentally, it's still the same thing. But I'll start off with the mother. What I like to do is when it's like a mother-daughter, I don't like to go direct. You know, I like to go more indirect or situational. And then I'll talk to both of them 50-50.
Sure.
And then I'll, you know, everybody, you've seen this everywhere, like, oh, wait, you're her sister? Oh my God, right? So I try not to use that. I just say, oh, you guys must be friends. And she's like, no, I'm her mother. Like, oh, wow, I couldn't tell at all. Right? So instead of going for that, hey, you look young, you must be your sister. You're like, oh, more of a friendship type of thing. So once you get that, you BT spike the mother a little bit, then you can transition back over to the girl. The key thing is when it's multiple people, multiple girls, you want to keep it 50-50, and then you want to keep it 60-40, and then 70-30. Now the reason I say this is, at nighttime, you run into groups of girls, right? If you're talking to one girl, what can her friends do?
Cock block.
They can cock block it, yeah, that's true. What else can they do?
Or they'll back off.
Or they'll back off, yeah.
There's
Right.
a lot of excitement for them all around. So
They can go dancing, they can go grab a drink, they can go sit down. There's options. They all chose to meet up there, they're probably all gonna leave together. During the day, girls just don't group up into group of 5s and just, hey, let's go walk around, right? It's maybe like an old friend that she's trying to catch up with, right? Oh, I haven't seen you in 2 weeks. So when you give her the option, pick, hey, I'm this guy gaming you, and this is your friend, she's always going to pick her friend. She's not going to drop her friend for some random dude that she's just trying to talk to. That's why I say 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. And then what's going to happen is you're going to start to see visual cues from the other girl, right? And you got to be able to read those visual cues in order to balance it out. Back to 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. Because the moment you don't acknowledge those visual cues, the girl that you're gaming is going to say, my friend is bored. I am socially obligated to relieve that. So, hey, okay, well, I got to go. We're going to go have lunch. I'll see you around. And I'll take her away. So that balancing act is pretty important. 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, read the girl. She starts getting antsy, she might put her hands together, she might turn away, she might pull out her phone. Bring her back into the conversation. Go 50-50 again, 60-40. Same exact thing if it's a 3-set, 4-set, balance it all out. If it's a mixed set, same exact thing. You know, you don't want to leave somebody else out there because they're going to get bored and then the other person's going to take care of them. Any other questions on that? Alright. So, give me your opener.
Any particular situation or just very
Or
generic?
She's walking towards you.
She's just walking towards me. If I'm in pretty good state, I will, as far as spacing is concerned, I guess I try to come in from a corner and I try to get just maybe a social touch, nothing too sexual or anything, just a tap, be like, hey, I know this is kind of random, but I just had to meet you, something like that.
Okay.
Usually acknowledge that it's random and weird. That's something that I always try to do rather than going directly for a compliment. But it's
Okay.
usually like, hey, this is kind of weird and random, but you're very pretty, or I just had to meet you, or that's a cool shirt, some bullshit like that.
So we'll say she's walking this way. She's at the door.
Mhm.
When do you usually start your interaction?
I start the interaction once I've completely like face to face kind of.
Face to
I don't
face.
do the spacing like you mentioned, where you're starting
Give
with
her the
physical.
option to walk away. The thing is that I find when you do that, and especially you try to keynote, it comes off kind of odd. And I'm not saying it comes off weird.
Sure.
Different schools have different thoughts. You know, some say keynote right off the bat, some don't. And what I think is they'll tell you to keynote because in general guys don't touch. So it's better just to be safe and touch at the beginning than not to touch it off. But as you get more advanced, I mean that's totally up to you. You know, you can read the girl, you can touch her, don't touch her. So when she's walking up, right, and you open right here, common thing that happens is then you're trying to reach for her. Boom. And if she walks past you, all of a sudden now it's this whole deal, right? Now everybody around is like, oh, you're trying to talk to her, trying to pick her up, whatever it may be. Also, another scenario that I run into is she has her purse on this side. Then she has her shopping bags, her Bloomingdale bags here.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now you're reaching over, you're trying to grab her, then you realize she has her purse, you're like, uh-oh. Then you can't reach on the other side because she has her Bloomingdale's bags, and then all of a sudden you're like, now you're playing catch up. Right now you're trying to get her attention, you're like,
Sure.
So, one of the exercises I want to do later on is I want to work on opening as far as distancing comes into play. Once you understand this, I guarantee you're going to be able to stop any girls. I mean, I've seen guys literally stop girls on skateboards, bicycles. Obviously, the spacing is going to be different because they're moving faster. So you might do it like in 20, 25 foot range because by the time they close the space, you know, it's there. So phones, same exact thing. If I were to give you guys one tip that I can say use this and it's going to open girls on the phone on MP3 players, would you want that?
Of course.
Okay. Do everything exactly the same as you would normally. There's no magic tricks, there's no key things that you can do that's going to open her magically. The thing is, if your body language is good, your eye contact is good, when you open her, first thing she's going to do is visually scan you, right? Because she can't hear you. She's got her MP3 player on. She's like, oh, okay, not a threat. What was that?
Mm-hmm.
But if your body language is off, then it becomes weird. Just think, you ever get that? You try to open a girl that's on her MP3, kind of startle her.
Right.
It's like, well, right, so something was off. Either your body language, eye contact.
Should you acknowledge that you said do everything the same, but should you acknowledge that she was like on the phone or something like that?
No, the thing, okay, what I like to say is when it comes to the phone, and she's on the phone, I like to say be a detective, right? Always find out things. She's like, oh, I have a boyfriend. Well, be a detective. Well, is it a serious thing? Is she looking to upgrade? You know, there's a lot of kinky stuff out there now. Is she, polyamorous or Mormon? You never know. So I always say be a detective and kind of dig deeper. If she's on the phone, one of two things is going on. One, she's not really on the phone. She's checking her voicemail, maybe just talking to a friend about something casual.
Mm-hmm.
Or two, she's really on the phone. Like her mother just got into an accident and she's like, Mom, are you okay? Like, is everything okay? You need me to come over. Those two things are gonna happen. go out there and find out why she's on the phone. If she's checking her voicemail and you walk up properly, your body language is on point, your fundamentals are on point, she's gonna put the phone down.
Sure.
Or she's gonna say, oh, hey Becky, I'll call you right back. Boom. But if it's an important phone call, she's like, no, I got, then don't be rude. Like, okay, fine, go talk to another girl. So don't let that kind of get in your way. It's like, oh, should I acknowledge that she's on the phone? Should I not? Just open.
Just be normal.
Yeah, just be normal.
Good
and
advice.
open. Yeah. Because a lot of girls don't like to stand by themselves during the day. You always, they'll either pretend like they're texting or they'll pretend like they're on the phone. They'll never actually just stand there looking like they're bored. For some reason, for girls, I don't think that's socially acceptable. Like a guy will just stand there like nothing, right? Lean up against the wall and you're okay. But a girl will never do that. Any other questions on that?
No, that's not it.
Questions on the phone game? Q3? I think somebody said, what if she's in a hurry? Right? She's rushing, so we don't have time?
Yeah, I think generally during the day,
One thing that I like to do is I throw in little questions where I can kind of gauge the logistics. I think a lot of guys don't do this when they're dating because you really don't need to at nighttime, because you're already assuming that she's going to be there 2-3 hours or whatever. What I like to do is somewhere in the very beginning, I like to throw out like, hey, so what's your story today? What are you up to today? What brings you out? And she's gonna be like, oh, I'm meeting up with a friend for lunch at 12:30, and it's 12:28. How much time do you have? Maybe a minute, right? She's like, oh, nothing. I'm just shopping around. I gotta pick up new curtains. How much time do you have? Okay, cool. We can run maybe a 20-minute, 30-minute set, ends the day, take her for coffee, because she has time. Like, oh, I'm in a rush. I gotta get to work. I'm like, in that scenario, she's not really going to choose to have an interaction with you if her career is going to be on the line. So I like to throw out these little statements in the very beginning just to kind of gauge where she's at. She's like, oh, I got to meet a friend in 5 minutes. What does that tell you? Well, it tells you that you either got to game her quick enough before the friend gets here, get the number, make sure it's a solid contact, or be prepared to engage with 2 people once she does arrive, and then game from there. And then back to the same principle. Hey, what's up? I was just talking to your friend about so-and-so. 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. Reading the visual cues, and then go back to 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. Does that kind of help? Because, if it's important, she's not going to pick a random stranger over something that's important.
Yeah.
So we got the MP3 player, the phone. What if she's walking? What if she's in a hurry? What else?
She's with her dog and she had just reached down with a plastic bag and now she's holding a treat and you wanna
As long as she doesn't eat it, you're good.
or throw it at you.
Or throw it at you. Yeah. If she throws it at you, you're something.
Food. If you're at the mall and she's at the food court, I always feel awkward approaching a girl stuffing her mouth with food.
Okay.
She must feel like so self-conscious at that
There's
time.
different stages when it comes to food, right? Different scenarios. Because one, you see this a lot, specifically at the mall. I'm talking specifically at the mall. You get the stage where she's looking up at the menu. Maybe I don't know. Maybe walk over to the others. Maybe I don't know. You have time there. You can game. You have time. Then you have the stage after that where she makes up her mind. She's like, okay, I want this. So then she starts walking towards the line to place her order or whatever it may be. That, I would wait. And then you have where she's actually paying, grabbing her food. I would definitely not approach that there. One, I recommend not approaching when there's money involved. Right? I had a student, he was really eager. This was in San Diego. And a hot girl walked by. He's like, when he turns around, runs after her. And then there's an ATM machine, and she turns around, she gets her money, and then he's like, Kino turn, she's like, money's everywhere. So if there's money involved, just wait. So she gets her tray, she's paying. Obviously, she has to go sit down, right? Mm-hmm. Wait till she sits down. Once again, don't acknowledge the food.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I know you're eating.
Sure.
When disturb you, man. Just go in there, do your thing, right?
Good to sit down. Like, say you've missed all these stages, right? Say you're at like the worst. What I kind of think is the awkward part for me is where she's already sat down, like she's like has like freaking bowl of noodles in her mouth, and is just chowing it down because like maybe she's on lunch break, so
Yeah.
she's trying to chow it down. So you catch her in the middle of that, and
Exactly. You said maybe, right? Maybe.
so do you sit down next to her? Like what? Like right then, what's the best thing to do?
When it comes to either she's sitting at a table eating. I like to do college campuses. She's on the grass studying, whatever. Whenever you encounter a situation where there's a difference in levels, you have to level change. Because it's really hard to create a rapport with somebody
Right.
if they're looking up at you like this the whole time,
Sure.
right? You see this with teachers and kids all the time, right? Little Bobby did something wrong, teacher will kneel down. No, Bobby, you're not supposed to do that. You don't see the teacher talking to the kids over them like this. So eventually, yes, sit down. But you said maybe she's on her lunch break. That's why I like to throw out all those little statements. I'll run my opener, I'll get her started. So what are you up to today? What brings you out? It's like, oh, I'm on my lunch break. Well, how long are lunch breaks?
30 minutes.
hour.
30 minutes an hour. Okay, so now you kind of gauged where you're at. All right, 30 minutes, I can slow it down a little bit. But if she's like, yeah, I gotta be back at work in 5 minutes, then you gotta speed it up.
Right.
So don't acknowledge the food, don't just go in there or anything, and then eventually you're gonna have to sit down. Now depending on you and how you run your game, like I'm not giving you specifics because there are no real rules when it comes to game, but there are tons of conditions.
Sure.
I like to just be bold and daring. I'll walk through her, I'll be direct, and I'll just sit down. Like I'll just expect her to open up and have a big smile. Because I lose nothing. Some guys will like to open up, maybe BT spike her a little bit, get her into an emotional state where she's laughing, giggling.
What's BT?
BT is like body temperature.
Okay.
Essentially, it's getting a woman into an emotional state, right? We know that women are emotional creatures, men are more logical. If you walk up to her and you're like, hey, you come here often? No. So are you with friends? No. You live around here? You always get that mocha, cappuccino, macchiato? These are questions, right? Questions. That'll get anybody into a logical state. So this is why a lot of guys, when they walk up, hey, come here often, they already fail right off the bat because they failed to get her into an emotional state. Now an example of the opposite would be a direct opener, right? I walk up to her, hey, I saw you sitting down, you're absolutely beautiful. I had to say hi, my name is. She said, oh my God, thank you. Immediately into an emotional state, right? And it's not just, it could be any emotional state. If you really break down game, like assholes get a girl into an emotional state. It's a negative emotional state, but it's still an emotional state. Now I'm not saying be an asshole to women, I'm not saying go out there and make her cry,
Yeah.
but just so you understand, you have to get her into an emotional state. That's how things, move forward. If you can't get her into an emotional state, it's not gonna work. She's just gonna be like, all right, I'll see you around. So, back to you. Yeah, totally depends on how you want to run things. But at some point, yeah, you do have to sit down. You can't just, it's going to be awkward, people are around you and they're like, wow, that guy's been standing there for 10 minutes. Where's he going to sit down? So either be bold, sit down right away, or game, run your stack, BT her, she's giggling and laughing, whatever, and then sit down. But yeah, eventually it's exactly the same thing if it's during the day, she's at a park, or she's on a college campus on the grass. She's going to be on the ground reading or doing something like that. Same exact thing. You have to go in there and run your game, either kneel down, sit down right next to her immediately, or game a little, make her laugh, giggle, and then sit down. But you can't stay standing. That level, that extreme level, it's not gonna work. So, any other questions on it? So food, don't acknowledge it. Phone, don't acknowledge it. MP3, don't acknowledge it. Always be a detective. Find out what she's up to. Throw out those little statements. Find out what she's talking on the phone is serious or not. See what other obstacles do you guys encounter out there? She's running away from you.
Well, one thing is sometimes there might be like I was in Santa Monica every day and they have like street performances and she might be watching a street performance.
Yeah. That's a lot easier though, because I mean, you can go situational. There's
Mhm.
so much going around. There's performing, there's people watching, there's like money on the thing,
Yeah.
might be a monkey clapping, you know, it's just a lot easier to go situational. Like as far as what aspect, as far as getting her attention away from that, or as
Yeah.
far as
Yeah, like how do you open that situation? How do you get her attention onto you?
well, I mean, it can vary. I mean, you know, there's guys that juggle plates and all that, you know, just walk up, like, hey, you know, you ever wondered how many plates he breaks in a day? And just get the conversation going, or you can just run your opener, go direct. A lot of common mistake is during the day, it's much more of a mental game than it is at nighttime. For some reason, at nighttime, guys have an easier time talking to girls because it's a club and you're supposed to talk to girls, right? Or it's a bar, you're supposed to interact with people, or you might be drunk and it's a lot easier. But during the day, when it's a situation like that where people are crowded around, or maybe it's at a bookstore and there's like, she's here and there's like a mom and a little kid over there and it's like a little old lady looking at the cookbooks over here, all of a sudden it becomes tougher for some reason. I was like, oh, what do I say? People might hear me, or people are going to be staring, or she's going to feel nervous. Trust me. There's two things that I want to say. The first one's kind of harsh. It's like, nobody in here is that important that people are going to stop and drop what they're doing in order to focus in and pay attention to what's going on. But sometimes you will encounter like another guy looking at you, which is great because obviously you're doing something right. What I like to say is, you know, if you're at a park and there's a basketball court, right, and Michael Jordan walks up to the court and he grabs the ball and he starts just to shoot around, what's going to happen? People are naturally going to gravitate and want to watch, right? Because people want to see something great. And the exact same frame of mind comes into play when you're talking to women and other guys come around. Don't let that stop you. Don't think, oh shit, he's going to hear me, he's going to hear me fuck up. Now, chances are he wishes he was you. He wishes he could talk to that girl. I've had situations where it's a girl by herself and you're running game, and next thing you know, at the corner of the eye, there's another girl a couple feet apart. But you're running game so well that her friend will just decide to kind of stay away. So just open normally. If you're worried about people hearing you, they're not paying attention. Even if they do, you're probably doing something right. So then from that transition, I don't know what your game is. Kind of, you know, you go direct, indirect, so I can't really say, oh,
I usually just go direct.
yeah, so just go direct. Like, don't overthink it. Like, that's what happens during the day. Like, oh man, she's looking at that book, and all of a sudden, for some odd reason, guys think that they gotta walk up to the bookshelf, they gotta grab a book, they gotta open it, and all of a sudden, magically, they, oh hey, right? No, just run your game. Right? Just don't even acknowledge that she's reading the book. Like, it's just a mental obstacle. Well, hope that helps.
Yeah.
And if the guy drops the plates, that's something you can talk about when it's happening. Any other obstacles or any days that you guys have problems with? No? Well, what are some situations then? Because, you know, this is real easy stuff. Like I said, if you can gauge that spacing and stop it, like, it's not difficult to talk to women during the day. A lot of guys make it complicated. When you run this routine, I gotta say this, I gotta, you know, disqualify, I gotta qualify.
Like you said, it's a mental game, and like I noticed that one thing that helps. Like, what is your opinion about wingmen? It's kind of tied in wingmen and like the amount of time that you're also out, because like that to me like affects it a lot. And like if like the way I look at it is that it's not going to be like a club where you're having a great traffic of women constantly. You got to fish kind of sometimes, which is why like committing 1 hour might just be a waste as compared to maybe like you gotta be bored for 3 hours, and there'll be those few moments where it's like, all right, cool, I could game. Now the problem with that is in between that time, how do you keep your state up and how do you do it? Sometimes having a wingman helps it. So like, what is your feeling on all that?
As far as like state or state control, as people like to call it, what I feel is if you're out there and you're physically exhausted, like you had a long day at work or maybe you partied the next day and you have to get yourself pumped up, that's normal, right? Because you can physically do so much. But if you have to get yourself in state mentally, then I feel is you're still in the process of changing who you are, right? So if you're out there, you're like, oh man, I gotta get talkative, I gotta get into state. It means because you're not naturally a talkative guy. Naturally, you're not the guy who's talking to the guy who's handing you money at the gasoline station. You're not talking to the Starbucks chick who's taking your order. You're not talking to like the random person that's standing next to you waiting across the street. So what I like to say is, you know, we have a saying that the ABCs of attractions is if you want the girl of your dreams, you have to be the man of hers. So as far as state, identify what you're lacking, right? If you're introverted, like you don't talk to anybody, well then that's something you're gonna have to work on. So in between those gaps, start talking to people, right? You're buying some water, because a lot of guys buy water and then you're walking around, it's hot. Talk to the cashier, random person standing watching the performance, have a conversation, right? All of a sudden now you became this guy who's a great conversationalist. Now that skill set right there will translate over to women. It'll make it easier. But if you're the guy who just stands around and you're just waiting for women, you're standing in the corner, you're like, damn, there's no hot women in here. I'm like, oh, no, you gotta wait. Then you're not that guy that women want to flock around, because you're not that fun guy. You're not the guy that talks to people. You're that guy who's gonna go sit in the corner with his hands crossed and just be quiet. So.
Yeah, I remember when you and I went to UCLA and we were just fucking around. It kind of dawned on me that, I mean, we would do that regardless. It's not like the thought of pursuing women was what gave us the notion of just doing humorous things. We went into, what was it, Whole Foods, and I grabbed a cucumber, and I went up to women and just asked her, like, hey, is this a good thing to bring to a birthday party or something? Yeah, the Vaseline too. Cucumber and Vaseline was for, like, I just randomly asked them if that's what a good birthday present would be. Or, I found that to be amusing, because I'm easily amused, but I mean, you know, I wasn't wearing a mask because I've done shit like that with friends of mine, and we haven't had the slightest thought of approaching women. So yeah, I would say it just complements what you said. If it's something you're not naturally doing, then you know I would start interacting with my own friends who I'm comfortable confiding in, who I can be an idiot around. And if I'm lacking with them, then it's definitely going to be missing around people, who I'm attracted to, who I almost expect some kind of reciprocity from.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, I think touched on was you said I'm comfortable, and it gets back to, and you always hear this from women, like, I just want a guy to be himself, right? Or like I don't want a guy to be phony. Well, they perceive that, right? If you walk up to her and you're like, hey, what's up? You're this fun guy. But you're really not. You're just putting on that front to game her. Well, there's going to be some incongruence there. So I would suggest, step one, set goals. If you find yourself that you're not a good conversationalist, start conversating with people. If you're like, I need to work on my BT game, on making her laugh, right? Then you can make random people laugh. You're a random stranger who's waiting at the light. You can say something funny, quirky. If it doesn't go your way, that's fine. You're crossing the street anyway, right? Because these skill sets translate over to women. It's not about finding the perfect routine or the perfect line and they're like, oh shit, I'm not a funny guy. Like, what routine or what line am I gonna say now that's gonna trigger an emotional response from her by making her laugh, right? It doesn't work that way.